Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I'm going to be talking about food, frugality, and prepping. And I want to start off by focusing on how to make the most of leftovers. Now, those of you who've been following me for a while know I already have a playlist full of recipes showing me how I use leftover beef roast, leftover chicken, leftover fish for making all kinds of different dishes, and I do have more of these to come. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and link to the playlist with those videos in it right up here, and I'm going to be talking about some of the different things that I make, and I'll show you a few pictures, and these are just suggestions and ways that you can consider taking some of your leftover meat and getting creative with it to make a whole new dish. Now my goal is to, whenever I make a roast or I bake a whole chicken, is to see how many different meals I can make out of that one thing. And my goal is to have at least 4 different meals from that one. Not 4 different dinners, but 4 totally different meals. So I might make a meal, and we might still, out of that one meal made from the leftover meat, we might still be able to eat on it for 2 or 3 nights. And then come up with a whole new dish from the rest of the leftover meat. So here are some suggestions that I have, just a few of the possibilities. Starting off with, let's say you have a beef roast, a venison roast, or an elk roast. You can take that, roast it up the first night, eat on it as a roast with maybe some potatoes and a salad and whatever other vegetables you like. And then you can take some of that meat and combine it with some beans, some refried beans, and make burritos. Or you can make cold cannon, or enchiladas, pot pie, stew, or even fajitas. Okay, now let's talk about a few options you can do with your leftover chicken. So obviously the first night, like with me, I like to either cook it on the wood stove in the wintertime or throw it in the solar oven in the summertime and just bake the chicken, and then we'll eat a little bit of that the first night. Then with the leftovers, I'll make maybe a chicken pot pie or creamy chicken lasagna or orange chicken, almond chicken, chicken fried rice, and then of course there's always soup. And same thing with the beef or elk or venison roast. You can always turn that into a stew or a soup when you get to the bottom, especially if you have any bone left at all. You want to cook that up, get a good bone broth going, and throw your vegetables and your herbs and spices in there. Now for fish, you can still do the same thing. Let's say you got some salmon or some kind of white fish and you bake up a big batch of it, and then you can take the leftovers and turn it into a casserole, such as something similar to tuna noodle casserole. Everybody knows this one. Well, I've made that many times using leftover steelhead or salmon. It's also good added to a fried rice blend, using whatever leftover vegetables and stuff that you have, or things straight from your garden. Or taking that fish and turning it into a spread using your homemade mayonnaise and whatever kind of additions you like to add to it, whether it be pickles or olives or fresh cucumbers. And you can spread that on some bread. You can stuff things with it, like I've stuffed it into nasturtium flowers. What I want you to do is, down below, I would like you to add in comments what are some of the things you like to do with your leftover meats, specifically fish, chicken, or some kind of red meat such as the venison, elk, or beef. And give us some more ideas. Now from there I want to move on to the whole idea of food storage. And obviously food storage and prepping go hand in hand, but so do frugality and food storage. All 3 of these just fit together. I think a lot of times people don't understand that they hear the word prepper and they kind of get this mentality that it's all about being afraid of the end of the world, and not necessarily, not necessarily. These all go hand in hand. Our ancestors were preppers because they canned and they put food up, and that was just what people did. That was just common. Most of your produce is going to come in the spring, summer, maybe early fall, and then you're going to be putting away as much as you can to last you through the winter. That is prepping. Even if that's all it is, it's still prepping. And it's also about being very frugal. So obviously, if you have the space and the ability to grow your own food, that's going to be the most frugal way to go about it. Now, here in Rain Country, we're still working on how to make the most out of our small space and out of the climate here, because we get lots of rain and we have a short growing season. Okay, now what I did was I brought out some of my home canned stuff. Some of it's stuff I've grown myself, some of it's stuff I bought at produce stands, and just to give you some ideas of things that you can put up, whether it be that you buy it at a produce stand or at your local store, or you grow it yourself. Now, for most people, no matter where you're at, growing potatoes should be pretty simple. Potatoes are easy to grow, and then canning them is super easy too. And I might go over how I can them now in a video down the road if you're interested. I haven't been real big on doing canning videos, but I think more people coming in are wanting to see how I can some things, and so I'll go ahead and show that down the road once I get a good harvest of potatoes. So here are some homegrown, home canned potatoes, and these are just a really great thing to have on hand because they're all ready to go. All you got to do is rinse them to get that excess starch off, and then you can either fry them up as is, just they're already cooked, but you could just fry them just on a real hot heat to add some crispiness to it in coconut oil, or you can use them to make a potato salad. This is one thing I like the best about these, is I can just whip this up into a quick potato salad using my fermented eggs, as I mentioned in another video, and my homemade mayonnaise. So, or you can take your home canned potatoes, some home canned beef, or the leftover beef, and throw that into a pot with some other vegetables, other home canned vegetables, whatever you have, or dehydrated or freeze-dried vegetables, and then you've got a pot of soup or stew, depending on how thick you make it. So again, right here, this is actually from 2013. Still good. I thought I actually had all the 2013 meat gone through, but can you believe it? It's 5 years old, and there's nothing wrong with this beef right here. Right here in this jar are some beans from our garden these are the runner beans, and I've used these to, obviously I save some for seed and plant them and grow some more beans, and then I use them as both. The great thing about the runner beans is I'll harvest the early ones and put up a bunch for green beans, and then let them finish aging out, and then have the dry bean for using in chilies and whatever else that I want dry beans for. And so the other night I made up a batch of burritos using my own homegrown beans that I cooked for a couple days, and then basically made a refried bean, and then combined it with some leftover elk roast that I had and some other things that I had on hand, made some homemade tortillas, and there we had some burritos. And so very, very cheap dinner, because the beans were free, the elk was free for the most part, and the tortillas were free except for the ingredients involved in making it. There was, and homemade tortillas are so much tastier and so much better for you. One of my favorite things to can are tomatoes, because home canned tomatoes have so many uses. I can use these home canned tomatoes for making spaghetti sauce or any Italian sauces for my pizza, my lasagna, whatever it is I want. I can use this to make chili, combining it with my dried beans that I have here, and these, by the way, are vacuum sealed in this jar. I can make homemade ketchup with it, and I have done that before, and it turned out really good. Just lots of things. So I think having some home canned tomatoes on hand are just should be top priority, because you can buy canned tomatoes, but of all the canned foods that you can buy, even if it's organic, canned tomatoes are probably the worst because of the fact that the acidity in the tomatoes combined with what's in those cans can make a not so great combination that's really not good for you to ingest. It doesn't matter how healthy the tomatoes were once they were put in there. Sitting in that can with the acidity for a long period of time is not healthy for you. So your own home canned ones in glass jars are going to be the best route to go. And it's extremely frugal. Right here I have a jar of homemade, home canned grape juice. Now we don't drink a lot of juice, but there's a lot of things I can do with this juice. I can make homemade gummies, vitamin gummies even, and I do have a video on that as well. And I can use it to make an all-natural soda using my homemade fermentation starter. I can use it for making dried apple pie. Cook the dried apples in the juice, just gives it a good flavor pop. And then of course you got the dried apples that you put away from your tree, so it's a very frugal. And all this stuff here is just already on my shelf. And here's the other thing about preparedness. I didn't think to mention when I was talking in another video until someone else brought it up in a comment. And I'm going to go ahead and link to that video right up here, Are Preppers Crazy? Because if you haven't seen it yet, it's not so much just the video, but go down and read the comments. There's some excellent comments. And at least one person mentioned about how their aunt or their grandma or their mom liked the idea of just being able to shop right in their own home. I mean, for us, food storage saves us tons of time and money. It's not just about prepping for a disaster, but the frugality of it and the time that it saves, because we only have to go to the store once or twice a month, and even then we only get a few things, like maybe some bananas and some oranges and maybe a couple other things. It's really hardly anything that we need at the store anymore as a result. But I can make, if I get a hankering for making spaghetti, I've got everything I need on hand. I can even make my own noodles if I run out of noodles, as long as I have plenty of flour stocked up on. And I've got my tomatoes, and I've got all my herbs and spices. A lot of them come, like the oregano, coming from my own garden, that I can add to the tomatoes and cook it down to make a really nice Italian sauce. I can add some of the canned beef to it if I want, or some of the ground beef or ground elk or ground venison that I have. I can cook that up and add that to the sauce. And that I have, some of it I have canned, some of it I have frozen. And it's all right there. I don't have to go, oh gee, I want spaghetti, I guess I got to go to the store and get noodles and get sauce and get all the things to make the sauce. I don't have to do that. I have everything I need on hand. And then of course there's a salsa. I can a lot of salsa. I've got salsa verde from my own homegrown tomatillos, and then I have salt, just regular red salsa. I think this was made from produce stand tomatoes. I do grow my own tomatoes. I just don't get enough to put up, because I like to put up lots of salsa and lots of tomatoes. So I do both. I grow them and I get them from the produce stand. Now, even though I can make chili with my beans, my spices, and my tomatoes that I have on the shelves, I do still like to can up, in the summertime, make a big batch, or in the fall, of just a huge pot of chili and then can it up, because this is really handy when you realize life just suddenly got really busy and you forgot to pull something out of the freezer and be prepared for your whatever it was you wanted for dinner. Well, I can just open up a can of chili and heat it up on the wood stove, or put it in the solar oven, and there we have it. It's ready to go. So having some, I don't like to do a whole lot of things like, special mixes canned, but a few things I do like to have in chili is one of them. That's one of our backups. So, because if you make chili from scratch, you got to soak the beans. You got to cook the beans for a long period of time. And if you're don't have the time for that, well, you can pull out a jar of your home canned chili. So this isn't even just about frugality and prepping and food storage. It's about also just making your life easier when things get really stressed out. And then in comes also the freeze-dried and dehydrated foods. And these are going to be more of an expense, but in the long run, they are very frugal and very time saving. So I like to focus on things that I don't grow myself, such as pineapple and mangoes and celery. I've tried growing celery. It did okay here. And sweet potatoes don't grow very well here. I'll try again someday. But these are the things that I like to stock up on freeze-dried and dehydrated. But I do still stock up on some dehydrated things that I can grow. Like I can grow potatoes, but I do still love having a bag of the dehydrated potatoes on hand for throwing quickly if I'm in a hurry and I don't have time to peel and dice potatoes, or maybe I've used up all the potatoes from our garden and I don't want to use the home canned potatoes. I could just take a big handful of the dehydrated or freeze-dried potatoes and throw them in a pot with my soup fixins, and there we go. And I do the same thing with carrots and anything else, and the celery. And so these things, and Mother Earth products is my personal favorite for several reasons. And one of those reasons are, especially if you're getting new into purchasing freeze-dried and dehydrated foods, you can purchase small amounts, even smaller than this, rather than dedicating yourself to the big number 10 can and getting it in and finding out you don't like it. No matter how you cook it, you just don't like it. You can buy smaller bags than this. You can even buy little small sample bags just to try out the different fruits and vegetables that they have and see if it's for you. And then if you do like it, then you can buy much bigger bags. They don't have the number 10 cans, but they do have everything in the Mylar bags, which take up a lot less room. And if you're not concerned about having food that's put away for 25 years or more, but something that you know you're going to use up within 5 or 10 years, I say go with this. Because for me, I like to cycle through things anyway, and that's part of being kind of more prepared, is learning how to cycle through your foods. I don't mind the idea of having stuff put away for the possible 25 years. I would much rather keep cycling through my stuff, and also learning how to use it. That's the other thing. So starting with smaller things to learn how to use it is really important. You don't want to open up a big huge can just to try it out and practice with it and then go, okay, now what? I'm gonna have to reseal it. Well, of course, you can always put them into vacuum seal them into mason jars if you want, once you've opened a big can. Oh, and then some other things I wanted to say about, such as freeze-dried fruits. Even if it's, we grow raspberries and stuff like that, but I still like to have freeze-dried raspberries on hand because I don't have a freeze dryer, and it's a really expensive investment. And maybe someday that'll be something we'll get into. I don't know. But for now, I'd rather just buy the freeze-dried products from Mother Earth products. And then I have those freeze-dried raspberries that I can easily powder up and then turn into a flavoring for, such as making my raspberry cream chocolate and anything like that. I mean, that's what makes the freeze-dried fruits really good. They're wonderful for flavoring. I've used the mangoes and the pineapple for water kefir. Just throw a small handful of each in there and it makes a real delicious water kefir. And then after you drink all the juice, you can just eat the fruit out of there because it's all rehydrated and it's slightly fermented and it's really, really tasty. So there's so many great things you can do with all your different types of food storage items that will not, it's not just about surviving when we're thinking on the prepping mindset. It's about thriving. Again, for us, the main reason why we do a lot of the stuff we do is for ease, it's for frugality, but it's also for just being ready for whatever life throws our way. And it doesn't even have to be any kind of disaster. It can just simply be all of a sudden you had guests that show up and, hey, we're here, and you want to make a dinner. You don't have to worry because about running the store. You've got everything you need right there in your own house. So I just think it's a wise thing to be prepared. Some people still don't quite understand that being prepared food-wise doesn't have to have anything to do with believing in whether a post-trib or pre-trib rapture, or believe in some kind of polar shift or an EMP is going to happen. Whether they happen or not isn't the point here. And whether you believe in it or not isn't the point. It's just about being ready for whatever life throws your way, and it doesn't even have to be a bad thing. Company is not necessarily a bad thing, depending on who it is, but if they show up, you're ready to go to feed them, and that's always a great thing. Or let's just say you have a friend that's in need, and you know they're going through a rough patch. Well, you've got all this great stuff that you can share with them in that event too. So it doesn't even have to be a bad life situation that happens to you, but maybe to somebody else that you would like to help out. So the preppy mindset can go in so many different directions. It doesn't matter what you believe. It's just a wise place to be. And it also doesn't have to be something that means amassing tons and tons of stuff. You know, if you live in a small place, a small apartment, I know there's a lot of people out there that live in apartments and are doing the best they can to make their lives, to be ready for what life throws their way. And they're doing it and they're making it work. So it can happen no matter where you live. Just remember, we're doing everything we can as far as having chickens and growing a garden and growing as much food as we possibly can on just our small 1/3 acre that is taken up mostly by our house and our outbuildings and our big shop. So, you know, we're making it work, and you can too, no matter where you're at. All right, well, I hope you found this video helpful. There's a lot more I could say. I didn't want to make this too long. I did mostly, though, want to open this up for further discussion about food storage, and how you make the most of your leftovers. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.